What's up, y'all? Roy here, and you're listening to the Clemens with a Z podcast. So this episode comes from kind of this idea that been kind of in me for a while, building, as you can say. It comes from reading a lot of contemplative teachers, from sitting with the words of people like Richard Rohr, Thomas Merton, even voices outside the Christian tradition who speak from a place of silence, of stillness, of watching the world without needing to control it. And strangely, that realization, instead of crushing me, has freed me. So there's this line in a song that I come back to in thinking about this particular episode and the theme of this. And it's by this guy named Ian McConnell, and it's called Important the Way I Wrote It. And there's this line that he says in the song that says, I used to think I was the main character. Now I'm not even sure I'm in the story. I recommend you guys pausing. Remember, it's Ian McConnell, and it's called Important the Way I Wrote It. You can pause it, listen to the song, and then come back. But that line where he says, I used to think I was the main character, and I'm not sure I'm even in the story. Like, that's the feeling. Like, that's the shift I'm feeling. It's this idea of me being the center of the universe, being part of something much older, bigger, and more beautiful than I've ever imagined. And once I began seeing the world through that lens, this lens of not being the point, I can't unsee it. Especially when I start looking back at the version of Christianity I was handed, and I know a lot of you were as well. So I think from the pages of the Bible, we're handed this narrative of human specialness. Genesis 1 says we're made in the image of God. Genesis 1:28 tells us to fill the earth and subdue it, to have dominion over every living thing. And for many of us raised in Christian systems, those words weren't seen as poetry or like context-bound commands. They were taken as literal proof that we're the point. Add that to Psalm 8:4-6. What is man that you are mindful of him, the Son of Man that you care for him? You made him a little lower than the heavenly beings, crowned him with glory and honor. You made him ruler over the works of your hands. And it's not hard to see how a story like this could lead us to believe we are the apex species, cherished, appointed, divine by association. Christianity in particular has leaned hard into this. God listens to you personally. Jesus died for you individually. Heaven is your reward. Creation exists to serve your story. And it's a deeply comforting narrative. Who wouldn't want to feel that seen, that central, that chosen? But that comfort has come at a cost because these verses are interpreted in a lot of ways as license instead of responsibility. The result is a faith that feeds the ego rather than humbles it. Dominion becomes domination. Image of God becomes a free pass to ignore the rest of creation. And being crowned with glory becomes a justification for acting like gods ourselves. But what if we've misunderstood the assignment? What if those scriptures were never meant to inflate us, but to invite us? Invite us into a deeper kind of stewardship. What if image of God doesn't mean you're in charge, but you bear a responsibility to reflect divine care? And what if being seen by God doesn't mean you're the center of the universe, but being part of a sacred web where every part is seen, held, and loved? Now, other traditions get this. Indigenous spirituality often speaks of being one among many, not above the trees, but among them, not rulers of the animals, but relatives. Even in ancient Judaism, dominion was balanced by deep laws about rest for the land, justice for the animals, and Sabbath for everything. The early Christian church often focused more on mutuality than on mastery, but over time, empire has reshaped the message. Christianity became more Roman than Jewish. more Western than rooted. And in that transition, something has gotten distorted. The story of interconnection became a story of importance. We started to believe this myth that this whole thing was about us. And now, once that seed takes root, it grows into systems of exploitation, of extraction, of religious entitlement. It tells us that this planet is disposable, that animals and ecosystems are just background noise, that anything outside our faith is either enemy or mission filled. It's that feeling that this is just a stop, you know? But what if the truest form of all of this spirituality, starts not with feeling important, but with realizing we're not? Now, not in the way we thought, anyway. And if you really want to undo this lie that we're the center of anything, all you got to do is look around, or better yet, look up, or even look out. Because the truth is, this universe does not revolve around us. It never has. And space, oceans, forests, they all testify to a reality way older, way bigger, and way less concerned with our egos than the religion we were taught. So let's start with space. The universe is 13.8 billion years old. Earth, apparently about 4.5 billion. And humans? Well, Homo sapiens have been around for maybe 300,000 years. And I know you've probably heard this many times, but if you line all of that time up into a single 24-hour day, human beings wouldn't have shown up until the last 2 seconds. 2 seconds. That's it. We're not even a blink. We're the echo of a blink. And yet we walk around like we're the main event. Let's zoom in closer. Let's talk about oceans. Oceans cover 70% of this planet, and they hold 97% of the Earth's water. It controls the weather, cradles entire ecosystems, and has more biodiversity than our land ever will. It has currents older than our written history. It has songs, literal whale songs, that travel thousands of miles through water. Then there's the depth of them. The deepest part, the Mariana Trench, goes down nearly 7 miles. That's over 36,000 feet deep. For comparison, you may or may not have seen it, but I like to say this comparison. Mount Everest, the tallest mountain on Earth, wouldn't even reach the surface if you flipped it upside down into that trench. It would be swallowed whole. And we've only explored about 5% of the ocean, which means functionally, we have no idea what's down there. It's a mystery, it's memory, it's majesty. And yet we treat it like a dumping ground because somewhere along the way we decided it was here for us. Forests, the same story. Trees were breathing before we were. They talk to each other underground. They share nutrients, warn each other of threats, whole communication systems beneath our feet. Look this up. I didn't just come out of this from nowhere. They produce the oxygen we need to live, and they do it quietly, without applause, without dominion. And they've been doing that longer than we've known how to form a sentence, longer than we've had language to even name them. And here's the wild thing about all of this. None of these things need us. They function fine without us. They might even outlive us, but we need them. And maybe recognizing that is the beginning of humility, of stepping out of the spotlight we never earned and finding our place in the choir of creation. Because when you see all that, space, oceans, and forests, you start to realize that I don't think any of this was ever about us being the center. I think this was about learning how to belong. Now, in traditional cultures, the transition from boyhood to manhood in rituals and initiation rites and all of that came from this painful but necessary truth. You are not that important. Not in the way you thought, not in the way your ego wanted. That was the first, and it is the first real lesson of initiation. And it's not about shame. It's not about erasing your voice or breaking your spirit. It's about breaking the illusion that you were ever the main character. Because once that illusion was shattered, something deeper could emerge, something rooted, responsible, and ready. But here in modern Western culture, especially in evangelical America, we skip that part. Evangelical Christianity tells us that you are the reason Jesus died, that God has a personal plan for you, that your soul is more valuable than the entire world created around you, and that this country is somehow at the center of God's story, that America is the city on a hill, that we are chosen, that we are blessed, that we are exceptional. So boys have never gotten initiated, they just got inflated. We handed them Bibles filled with metaphors and told them to read them like mirrors, told them that they were little kings, told them they had dominion, told them the world was theirs to lead, fix, or save without ever teaching them how to listen, break, or serve. And just to be clear, yes, I'm talking about boys and men, but this isn't just a boy thing. This isn't just about masculinity. I believe it's a human thing, a living being thing, an American thing. You know, every creature on earth knows instinctively that they're a part of something bigger. Birds migrate without needing to be the star. Whales sing in chorus, not solos. Wolves don't dominate the pack, they serve its survival. And in nature, everything is connected because everything depends on something else. There's no illusion of independence, and there's no need to be the main character. But humans, especially in modern Christian drenched culture, we got sold the lie that we're separate, that we're above it all, that we're not just different, we're better. And that lie doesn't just break the planet, it breaks us and it isolates us. It makes us fragile because deep down, something in our bones knows that we're meant to be part of something bigger. We're meant to be woven in, not elevated above. Real initiation, real transformation has to happen for all of us. Not just boys becoming men, but humans becoming whole, moving from ego to ecosystem, from spotlight to web, from center stage to chorus member. It's not just about disappearing, it's about belonging. And when you combine a theology that says you're the center of the universe with a culture that says your nation is the center of history, you get a people who don't just feel important, they feel entitled. And the damage from that, we're living in it. You can see it in pulpits and politics, in mission trips that look more like tourism, in prayers for blessing that sound more like demands, in a planet on fire while preachers say in more ways than not, don't worry, it's all a part of the plan. This isn't about real faith, it's about spiritual ego. And without real initiation, without something that fractures this illusion, we don't know how to carry power without humility. We don't know how to stand in a forest and shut up. We don't know how to be small in a way that's holy. We don't know how to take our place without trying to take over. So we stay stuck in spiritual adolescence, clinging to certainty and grasping for applause and mistaking attention for purpose and dominance for worth. But every real rite of passage, whether tribal, mythological, or spiritual, has this same turning point. The moment when the person realizes, I'm not the point, but I am a part. That's the pivot. That's the freedom. Because once you stop needing to be the center, you finally become free to play your part well. And that's the paradox, isn't it? You're not the center of the universe, and yet you matter. You're not the whole song, but you're a note, a real one, a needed one. There's something deeply freeing about realizing you're not the main character. For me, it takes the pressure off. It means I don't have to hold it all. Because you don't have to be spectacular to be sacred. Because your worth was never meant to be measured in spotlight, but in participation. You're a part of that system. Think about a tree. One tree doesn't look like much. You walk past it without even noticing. But that one tree is exchanging carbon for oxygen. That one tree is home to bugs and birds. Its roots hold the soil together so it doesn't wash away the rain. Its fallen leaves nourish the ground. It might not be ancient, it might not be majestic, but it's playing its part. And then I want to change that to that's kind of majestic, right? Same with the squirrel, the worm, the bees, the moss, the fungi network beneath your feet. None of them are important or special by themselves, but remove even one, and the whole system begins to tremble. That's us too. We're not here to be the most important, we're here to belong. The sun doesn't rise because of you, but it still warms your skin. The rain doesn't fall for you, but it still makes your food grow. The tree doesn't breathe for you, but you still breathe because of it. You don't need to be the center to be significant. You just need to know your place, not as a ruler, but as a participant, not as an owner, but as a contributor, and not as a god, but as a being in a beautifully interwoven world. And that kind of belonging, it's not loud. It doesn't ask for applause. It just is. And I see this also in every story of Jesus, this calling. I know back an episode or two, I talked about this kingdom is already here. Think about Jesus and the Samaritan. Think about Jesus healing this man with a withered hand. All these people were focused on all of these things because of themselves. This idea of not ruining their holiness, their specialness, because it would lose their place. And Jesus is telling these people to look around. There are people hurting, dying, and in need of help, salvation, love, caring, and empathy, and you're missing it all. And we're missing it all as well. And I challenge anyone, look at that, please. I'll argue about it. I don't care. Let's go. Because I think that this is the gift. It is the gift. Not that you're the center, but that you're included in the vastness of time, in the quiet chorus of rivers, roots, and stars. You exist not to dominate, not to impress, but to take your place. A breath in the great exhale, a note in the eternal harmony, a life small, vital, and beautifully not the point. And again, when I look at Jesus now, I don't see someone trying to make us feel like the center of the universe. I see someone constantly decentering himself and inviting others to do the same. Seeing a man who washed feet, who slipped away to lonely places, who stood with outsiders, challenged power, and kept pointing to the bigger picture, saying things like, "The first shall be last. Take up your cross. Whoever loses their life will find it." And that's not about being important, that's about being transformed. It's not a path to greatness, it's a path to belonging. And maybe that's what Richard Rohr means when he said that you are not important, and yet you are infinitely important. Not because the world revolves around you, but because you are woven into it. Because you have a place, a part, a purpose, not above, but within. And maybe, just maybe, that's where the holiness lives. So thank you for tuning into this episode of Clemens with a Z. Y'all's support means the world to me and helps keep these big, necessary conversations alive. If this episode stirred something in you, if it helped you feel less alone, more grounded, or even just a little more okay with not being the center of the universe, I'd love to hear that too. You can reach me at clemenswithaz@gmail.com or drop me a DM on Instagram at the Clemens with a Z podcast page. And as always, if you enjoyed the podcast, please rate, review, like, and subscribe. It helps others find these stories and this space. And don't forget, I'm just a channel. I ain't the source. If you'd like to support the podcast financially, you can find the link to the GoFundMe in the show notes or on Instagram. Or you can head over to clemenswithaz.com and grab a sticker or something cool from the shop. Every little bit helps keep this work going, and I'm deeply grateful. So until next time, breathe deep, take your place, and remember, you don't have to be the center to be sacred. Peace.